Okay, I'm going to jump in, Elise, and start.
Sounds good.
I know some people are buffering in. I wanted to get started because we've got a lot of good things to cover tonight. I'm Peter Arnold. I'm the Executive Director of the Fashion Scholarship Fund, and I'm super excited that it seems like almost or over 300 of you are joining us tonight to hear a little bit about what we are calling Virgil Abloh's virtual campus visit, an opportunity to hear some more about the Fashion Scholarship Fund, but probably more meaningfully about Virgil's Postmodern Scholarship Fund. And I'm joined tonight by 3 of our former scholarship winners, now alums, friends of the organization. Jasmine Bacchus, who's a 2019 and 2020 scholarship winner and is currently a senior at Brown University. Welcome, Jasmine. And Rolanda Evelyn, who is a 2016 Fashion Scholarship Fund winner, graduated from the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania, and Kenny McCullough, 2008 scholarship recipient from the University of North Carolina, Greensboro. Thank you, Kenny, Jasmine, Rolanda. And Virgil, who's been a friend and supporter of the Fashion Scholarship Fund, now a board member and the founder and funder of the Postmodern Scholarship Fund. So, Elise, I'm going to ask you to pull up the screen and turn this over to Jasmine, Rolanda, Kenny, and Virgil to kind of walk the group through a little bit about us, a lot about Virgil's fund, and then we'll open this up to a Q&A. So over to you. Thanks, Elisa. Thanks, Virgil.
Great. So Virgil, if you'd like to kind of kick us off, we'd be happy to hear from you.
Yeah. No, thanks for everyone for joining in like Tuesday evening. I'm sure we're all like in our usual midst of day-to-day activities, but you know, for me, what might seem is like my career of doing design and all these sorts of things might seem like a highlight, but really to connect with you guys on like hopefully a personal level to make this like the archetype opposite of campus visits. You know, like, let's be real, like we need action, we need opportunity, we need conversation, we need an open platform to talk. So don't get don't get bogged down by slides and the Zoom screen. Like, this is only just an initial framework for me to hear, understand, and ultimately be on campus, like finding out what's popping, essentially. But the conversation starter is for my ambition and partnership with the Fashion Scholarship Fund, which is like really rolling up our sleeves and finding a way to change the world in a tangible way, so then we can all be on a different phase of our career, you know. And so I approached the team. I had this idea of rewiring how you even think about scholarship, how mentorship shows up, how activism can appear within multiple facets of our lives. And we came together, raised $1 million before announcing this initiative of providing merit-based scholarships within the Fashion Scholarship Fund to Black students across America, and even furthering our partnership with what universities we align with. So that's when I say, and I mean, that this conversation is just the beginning, and it's to present our ambition and the work that we've done before arriving, so that we can do more amazing work from these years on. And that's sort of just the intro before we get deeper into these slides that we did prepare. Do you want to go to the next one?
Yep, sounds good.
Thank you, Virgil, so much for that introduction. And I think everyone's super excited to be here and learn more about your scholarship. Just to let everyone know the agenda for tonight's presentation, we're going to take you through a little bit more about Fashion Scholarship Fund. Virgil is going to tell you. Virgil's going to tell you all about his postmodern scholarship fund. And then you're going to be able to hear from myself, Kenny, and Jasmine. As Peter said, we were scholars and also alum of the program, so we'll be able to tell you all about the internship opportunities, the mentoring opportunities that FSF provides you, even after you graduate, some of the alumni benefits and events that you'll be able to attend. And then, of course, the nitty-gritty of the deadlines and submissions for when you need to submit your case study for the FSF scholarship. And of course, we're going to close it out with Q&A and make sure that you all are able to ask any questions you might have as we go through the presentation. So I'm going to hand it off to Jasmine to kick us off.
Thanks, Rolanda. If you're able to go to the next slide. I'm not seeing. Is the next one up?
Yep, the mission is right there.
Okay, sorry, I'm having a lag and I don't see it, but that's okay. Got a copy here. So I wanted to chat first, starting off with our mission statement. So the Fashion Scholarship Fund's mission statement, facilitating the future careers of talented young adults from diverse backgrounds, awarding over $1 million each year in scholarship funding and providing scholars with intensive mentorship, industry networking, internship and career opportunities, professional development, and direct access to the country's top companies and most influential leaders in fashion and the related business sectors. And the background on the FSF, they were founded in 1937, and they are the foremost fashion-oriented education and workforce development nonprofit in the United States. I thought it was a great time just to kind of establish who this organization is and really what their goals are. I'm also just going to give a little bit background on the Virgil Abloh Postmodern Scholarship Fund. The mission there is to foster equity and inclusion within the fashion industry by providing scholarships to students of academic promise of Black, African American, and African descent. So with that background, we're going to transition into more information about the membership goals.
And Kenny, feel free to chime in about the member schools.
Sorry, have my mute button on. Okay, so we have a wide array of schools here that participate in the FSF scholarship competition. As a former HBCU graduate myself, I'm very excited that we have 8 new HBCU schools that can also participate. So I look forward to maybe meeting some of you one day.
So taking into account what Jasmine said about our mission and Kenny about the schools that FSF partners with, I really wanted to share this quote by Lindsay Peoples-Wagner. I'm sure many of you know her. I look up to her. She's the current editor-in-chief at Teen Vogue. She's also a co-founder of Black in Fashion Council, which I'm sure some of you might have heard of. They are also actively working to make the fashion industry a more diverse place to be. And so her quote goes, "It's very easy for people to tap into a moment and say they care about an issue, but people have been doing that for years without making systemic changes," end quote. And I think just this speaks a lot to what Virgil was getting at in the beginning, is that we're really here to lean in and try to make real change for the future. There's so much more work to be done, but we're so excited about this partnership with Virgil and the FSF. And I think tonight will be an incredible way for you all to learn more about not only FSF, but just to think bigger about what kinds of opportunities you might want to pursue in the fashion industry, even if you don't necessarily see yourself as a designer or quote a creative or whatever label you might have in your head. Like, there's so much opportunity for you, and we want to be able to express that to you tonight.
So I think this is a great time just to talk about the HBCUs that are part of the FSF program. So in the past, Clark Atlanta and Spelman have been members of the FSF, but we have recently added 6 more HBCUs this year. I think this is just a fantastic opportunity to continue outreach, specifically working with Black students who are interested in these fashion careers. And I know that FSF is also hoping to expand this list in the future. But the schools that are currently on the list are ones that have really excellent fashion or business programs.
Yeah, and speaking to this slide, it's like, you know, why now? You know, if 2020 isn't a reminder of why now, you know, we live on a different planet, but this is long before a 2020 issue. You know, areas of culture that directly are influenced and profit from and exist and are contextualized based on Black culture is something that obviously we need to own stake in and also be given the infrastructure to own stake in and participate. So, it was very simple for me, using my position of having the privilege to partake in fashion at this scale, coming from the background that I am. The goal was simple, is to give the resources that me as a 17-year-old needed to get onto the track to where I am now, to make sure that the doors that I'm opening are stuck open for the future. And, how do you do that? You accomplish that by, a number of means. And what you'll see throughout the presentation is, I'm speaking from a place of testing it out on myself and learning from that, like from a literal sense and a figurative sense, to be able to execute this ambition of providing inroads to Black students. It's my firsthand experience, but also knowing that partnering with the Fashion Scholarship Fund, an organization that's been dedicated to doing this work for many tens of years before I have even started my career, lets me know that there's an infrastructure in place. So where I can give my experiences as the panel that I'm presenting with you here, alumni of that same experience, we're essentially just rolling up our sleeves and doing this specific work that we followed in the footsteps ourselves. And that leads into the rest of the presentation that showcases the scholarship fund plus my postmodern portion.
And I think kind of to follow up and go along with this, a quote that really stood out to me that I think resonates with all of our reasons for being here today. I'm just going to read a portion of it. But until this is from Erica Lovett, the Director of Inclusion and Diversity from Condé Nast. But until fashion leaders across all categories become more diverse, we will continue to only progress at the surface level. This really resonates with me, kind of what we've just been saying. The Fashion Scholarship Fund is looking at various different disciplines, not just design, but business, and maybe even people that have interest in editorial. But ultimately, we really need to tackle diversity from across the different areas in the industry. And I think that's what's so awesome about the scholarship. And as over the next couple of slides, we start to talk about the wealth of different disciplines that are available, I think it's really inspiring, at least for me, still even being a college student, to really think about the various different paths that are available to me and how all of those paths are going to contribute to a more diverse fashion industry.
Okay, so to talk a little bit about the case study, this is what you'll submit to actually even get into the FSF organization. And I remember I did this back when I entered the organization back in 2007, which was so long ago, but it was really interesting. It was when sustainability really sort of started to touch down in fashion. And I remember one of our case studies requirements was to design a brand or line that was sustainable. Like, how would you make this brand sustainable? And I did a menswear line, and I came up with a t-shirt campaign for it, and I did all this stuff, and it was really interesting and great, and it was fun while being stressful at the same time. But it was so engaging to be able to do that and know that your work stands for itself and that you get selected, and who knows, after this, we choose the top 8 students and they get it, it goes even further. So, and there's several disciplines. If you're more of a creative or a designer, then you can actually do the design of product development. Also merchandising for those of you who are interested in that field, and the more business savvy aspect, we have the market analytics for you strategists who sort of want to get into it and sort of come up with a creative way to do that, and also the supply chain. And I'm going to pass this over to Jasmine, who will tell you more about the eligibility requirements to actually get into the case study.
Yes, so you can kind of read on the screen a lot of the eligibility requirements. I think what's really important to highlight here is that, the GPA requirement and the year, so this is for sophomore, juniors, and seniors currently. And if you have won the scholarship in the past, you're able to reapply. I think we also just want to highlight that this is available for people across disciplines. So it actually doesn't matter if you are in your school's business school and you're studying business, or you're in a formal design program. It's really up to you to pick the discipline that really speaks to you. And as Kenny just explained, they're across disciplines. And you can also change it up throughout years. So if you apply this year as a sophomore and you do design, The next year, if you want to try business, you can try your hand at a marketing analytics case, for instance. Also, to highlight the Postmodern Scholarship Fund, so that is specifically for students of Black, African American, or African descent. The GPA requirement is the same. All disciplines are eligible, but only full-time juniors are able to be eligible for the Postmodern Scholarship.
Yeah, and getting into a little bit more detail as well, like the finer points we'll leave with you all about the Postmodern Scholarship Fund. But again, I stress, and it's sort of I might be like sort of repeating the same thing, is like, let's be real, like PDFs, bullet points, presentations, you know, okay, they're cool because they're needed, but I was interested in really developing a scholarship fund that is called Postmodern for a reason. It's after everything. It speaks our language. It's casual. It's just real talk. We could just call it the No Cap Scholarship Fund, because that's really what I sat back and saw. Is like, I see a lot of scholarship funds or academic outreach that are very stiff. You know, they don't speak the language of the now. And frankly, my career is only successful because I took the language of the now and I applied it to Louis Vuitton or Nike or Mercedes, you know, in a way where it's just what I know best. You know, I didn't know formal training in fashion. I didn't come from a formal training, but that doesn't mean that that industry is not for us. It actually is for us. So when you talk about building an infrastructure to support us being in fashion, I wanted to sort of like roll up my sleeves and do it in my language, in my way, and with the best people to do that, which is the Fashion Scholarship Fund. But essentially, the infrastructure, that's a really poignant way of how I noticed the industry, and it's sort of my critique of the industry, is that in design, they try to position someone as better than someone else, or ranking, or sales, or resonance, or just popping or not. And I fundamentally don't like the idea of winning in design, because that means that someone is like losing. And I think that's like a number one pitfall. So the Postmodern Scholarship Fund, by disguise, is valuable whether or not you win or you don't. That's the first sign of how it was designed. You know, like the digital mentorship, me speaking and giving codes that I've learned and applying and giving that out as information. A part of the Postmodern Scholarship Fund is like an array of the industry contacts that I've gathered, peers in design, giving information to Black students. You know, so I want to stress that, of course, the goal is to apply, and hopefully we give you, you know, $5,000 scholarship towards your education, but also the benefits of the adjacencies, the network, how to advance your career. That's the valuable part, and that's what I'm extending as a part of the Postmodern Scholarship Network. You know, different designers, you know, from a Jerry Lorenzo to a Heron Preston to Shane from Hood by Air to Telfar, you know, that's the sort of network of names and people that I'm bringing in terms of a digital mentorship platform that are just giving free source information to hear our stories and to learn how we've made it. But like a yin yang, you know, partnering that with like real infrastructure, the infrastructure at the academic level, you know, the case studies that Kenny just explained to you, that's my literal day job. You know, that like the mentoring, the feedback that you'll get by presenting those case studies is literally the window to the real world that the Fashion Scholarship Fund provides, but even my portion specifically catered to Black students and the future of fashion, you know, streetwear, they call it, all these other sort of rationales are a little bit of what I want to bring my community to this conversation that we're having here. So I urge you to go through all the bullet points. You know, I wanted to speak to the premise because that's the most important, and hear it from me directly. But the granular part is what makes the Fashion Scholarship Fund as strong and tested as its reputation has. Is this one me or is it
Yes, sorry, Virgil. We want to hear more from you.
But yeah, you know, like the benefits as it relates to the Fashion Scholarship Fund, you know, it's the actual award. They will range between $5,000 and $15,000. You know, the top finalists compete for like a higher award levels. There's internship and job opportunities, obviously, that are, you know, embedded within this infrastructure. So for me, for one, you know, there's within Off-White, within, you know, I have Evian, Nike, Louis Vuitton. I brought my partners to the table as well. Not only did the people in the companies that I work with support my initiative with starting with the $1 million, they're also opening up their doors and participating in winners of the case study can then intern at these positions as well. You know, I'm inviting my outer network to sort of provide opportunities and support my initiative as well. You know, the mentoring program, as we discussed, you know, there's a formal part and then there's the digital part, which is making access to the lectures that I'm doing and curating are available to all, no matter if you've won or not. The alumni benefits and professional development events, you know, this has been a part of the FSF ecosystem for many years and will continue to be. You know, it's been a formal part of the organization and provides like such a valuable service. And then obviously summer events, you know, obviously it's COVID and there's been an adaptation to finding ways to work as we are now. And that will continue as we move forward.
So I think we're just going to dive a little bit more into those benefits specifically. So my job here is to talk a little bit about internships. So if you're a college student like me, the summer internship rush is just a really stressful time. And I think that's what being part of the FSF has really helped with. My first internship in fashion was a couple of years ago, and it really was the gateway for me to figure out this is the industry that I want to work in for the rest of my life. And so I think it's really amazing to have these opportunities to use these internships to figure out what you like and what you don't like. And FSF is really helpful in allowing you to do that. So once you win this scholarship, there are talent acquisition events that you were able to attend where you can connect with a variety of different companies. And by all means, if Kenny or Rolanda, you want to jump in here if you have internship stories too. But it just gives you a great opportunity to meet one-on-one with recruiters, figure out which companies are a good fit for you. And many people end up walking right from those events with internship offers or interviews. So it's really, really helpful.
All right, so just to sort of tag along onto what Jasmine was saying, here's a picture of me and my mentor, who actually at the time was the group president where I interned, which was Tommy Hilfiger at the time. So that's how I met Colleen Kelly, which you see me here with. And she's really great. You know, she's somebody who I can go to with any career advice that I have. You know, I've been stressed out at times and I call her and she's like, Kenny, just come to the office. Like, we'll talk about it and we figure out a way to get it through. But I love it. The fact that, you know, this is actually offered through FSF, and now with Virgil on board, that, you know, that sea of people to sort of connect with and network with has even expanded. So we're really excited about this initiative. And I can say without this mentorship program, I don't know what I would have done at certain points in my career path. So very grateful for this.
And then lastly, so Jasmine, can you walk you through some of the opportunities that are available when you're a student? When you graduate, the benefits don't end, the perks don't end, the networking doesn't end. You still have, you know, all of FSF at your fingertips. And so there are a bunch of professional development events that you can attend. I'm gonna pick on Kenny again. And so one of the events that you can attend is an accelerator grant pitch event. So essentially, if you decide that you wanna be an entrepreneur and you wanna start a business, you can compete for up to $50,000. If you like squint really closely, Kenny is up there in the top right corner, and he was a competitor and he did phenomenal. And that is a testament, because if you look right next to him, Coco Rocha was one of the case judges that FSF had invited to the panel, and Kenny knocked it out of the park. So, you know, there continues to be touch points for you even after you graduate. Personally, you know, to Virgil's point where he's talking about, you know, there's an ecosystem that is happening that FSF opens you up to. For me personally, I currently work at Rent the Runway. I work in product marketing there. And the way that actually happened was earlier this year in January, I presented an award to the CEO of Rent the Runway. Her name is Jen Hyman. And from that conversation, after having presented that award, that is what opened the door for me to reach out to her, for me to connect with the recruiter at Rent the Runway. And I started working at Rent the Runway earlier this year. So that, and my point is, that wasn't even a talent acquisition event or a recruitment event, right? That was just being able to be in the room and meet people and network with people. And that was all because of FSF. So there's so many opportunities that are unofficial that that aren't even listed on this slide, but happen because you are now a part of this community. And Jasmine and Kenny are going to show you some of the like exact examples of some of the summer event series that I thought were phenomenal. I'll jump in because I'll tell you some of my favorite ones.
Yeah, I think it'd be great if you want to share your favorites too. But essentially, once you are part of the FSF network, you were able to attend the Summer Scholar Series. FSF puts on a variety of fashion events over the summer. I mean, really, any single part of the industry that you might even be somewhat curious about, FSF puts on an event for it, which is so helpful. One of the ones that was actually really impactful for me was a couple months ago, was about business school. So I'm a senior and I'm still figuring out, do I want to start a full-time job? Do I want to go to grad school? And I was able to hear from different FSF previous scholars who had thought about getting their MBA and the pros and cons of that path. And that was something that was like very specifically related to fashion and the business path for me. And it was really, really helpful. Rolanda, I know you attended one this summer that was pretty amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I attended way too many of them. I love them. Some of my favorites were, I mean, Tommy Hilfiger was literally in a masterclass, and it was like you were having a conversation with Tommy, which I don't know if anyone has ever done that before, but he spoke so much about, you know, the beginning of his company, like so many of the challenges that he's working through today at the company. And then even thinking about like what he looks for in an ideal candidate and who have been the people that have stood out to him as an intern over the summer. So just hearing from industry leaders in that way and having that direct line of communications where you could submit a question, I think is phenomenal. I'll also shout out over the summer, especially like Virgil mentioned, we're in COVID, there have been so many changes in the retail industry. FSF hosted a workforce preparedness class with LinkedIn, where an actual member from the LinkedIn team came and walked us through how to optimize your LinkedIn profile, what your headline should be, what your profile photo should be, where you should be uploading files, what each of the bullet points in each of your professional like experiences should be. And you can think, right, especially in a time like now where landing a job might be harder, that information is so invaluable, I would say. And so to have those sort of resources available to us, I think are priceless.
Okay. All right. So as Rolanda and Jasmine were saying, the summer series was really great. A few hours actually, and Rolanda, I'm sorry, I'm so with you on that. I've attended way too many of those myself as well. We've had 27 brands engaged with this that were really great. I mean, you can see the list here. I mean, you have Lee Milk Makeup, you know, Brandon Maxwell. And we have several series where we had industry leaders, Virgil himself, thank you, so excited to have you on. And, you know, Sandrine Charles, and you have Martin Cooper and Coco Rocha, all these great people who come and you literally get to speak with them and hear from them like one-on-one. And I think that was amazing. And, you know, for me, I think one of the great things that we had earlier this year was with Virgil, where we talked about the postmodern sort of scholarship and we had a few of the people of color in the organization to sort of get on board with him and sort of talk about ideas for the future. How can we propel, Black creatives, and what programs and initiatives can we put in place and to really help, people of color stand out. So for me, that I took that to the heart, because I thought that was something that, you don't get those opportunities every day. So I just think that being a part of this organization, it really does open the door for your network and for you to meet people and connect with, and who knows where your future can take you after that. So, yeah.
Alrighty, this is our last slide of the presentation, so make sure you have your questions ready. You can feel free to drop them in the chat box so that we can get to them right after this. I know this is what you guys are all here for, so we want to talk to you about the deadlines and the submission process for how to apply with the case study to FSF. So step one is, come April, you as applicants will need to fill out your applicant profile and a scholarship eligibility quiz on WiseHive. So WiseHive is the platform that FSF will be using for case study submissions. We highly encourage you to do this early, so FSF knows that you're planning to submit your case study, right? So just because the due date for the case study is until October, make sure that you get this stuff filled out and you'll be all set. Then come second in October is when your actual case study will need to be submitted. So that means you'll need your case study, you will need a cover letter, you will need your resume, and then of course an unofficial transcript, and all of that will be again submitted on WiseHive, which is the platform that we will be using. After you do that, you will get confirmation that your application has been received, and you can then thinking about after your submission, when do we hear back? That's when everyone wants to know. We are anticipating that recipients would be announced come December. So you submit in October, come December, to the FSF faculty members, so those members at your school who are the point of contacts. As you probably have heard, when you submit your application, the cases are read by a panel of judges from across the industry, because we obviously, as Kenny mentioned, there are quite a few disciplines, and we want to make sure that everyone has a fair shot. And so it will be anonymous, and so you can kind of think of the 3 days that you want to remember is April to get your applicant profile set up. You'll submit your full completed case study come October, and then you can expect some sort of announcement to the faculty members come December of who will be the announced winners. I know that's a lot of information. So we're gonna open it up for questions. You can ask any of us any questions. Virgil is here to answer questions too. I'm sure you must have a lot. You can drop your answers in the chat box, and then Jasmine, Kenny, Virgil, and myself will be answering them for you.
So I see a question from Mela Eager. Your question was, what do you think made your case study project stand out from others in order to gain a scholarship? I think that first of all, make sure you complete every part of the case study, get that done. Make sure that it's very clear and thought through. Like, we want to make sure that your plan can be actionable, had it be put to a real scenario. So make sure that that's together, make sure that it's consistent. And just something that's innovative and creative, think outside the box. You guys are the future of fashion. What is going to be that next big thing, or what can be a thing that can excel fashion from point A to point Z? Just your creative knowledge and what you have and what you feel passionate about.
Yeah,
go ahead, Jasmine.
I was going to say, to go off of that, I think if you are like someone who is not in a traditional like retail fashion program or a business program, this is also a way to bring what you're learning in the classroom in your different disciplines and really push yourself, like Kenny said, think outside the box. I study political science and philosophy, so I don't study business, but I'm able to think critically about maybe some of the things that I'm learning in my class or topics that are really interesting to me, and then how can I apply that to the industry? And I think that's what's also helped my case studies stand out, because it's bringing a new perspective, and that's kind of what FSF is looking for.
Jasmine, you read my mind, because I was going to say I was a communications major, so I too did not have a traditional fashion background, and I actually think sometimes that benefits you because you can bring a new perspective. I would also say, to Kenny's point, you all are on camp, you all are students, you are, as Virgil was saying, like, the language of the now, so bring that to your application, right? Like, the future of fashion, the future of media, tech, pop culture, all of those intersections, you know best. And so I would encourage you to think about what things have you seen that have resonated with you in the world, even like specific brands, and use that as inspiration. It doesn't have to be what the like by the book or notebook answer has to be. Truly what you feel is like what you feel passionate about and what stands out to you. I think that's the best answer.
Virgil, do you have anything to kind of chime in on suggestions for the students to have their case study really stand out?
Just echoing the same. It's like thinking outside the box, you know, like something great that I heard over COVID, just listening to other admirable people speak, is like, when you know the language of the game, you know the game, but also you know like how to play the game and stand interesting, you have to look at the application process as a game in a way. You know, don't think of it as just something that's like a generic question. Think of it in a way that if you were looking through like 10 submissions, that this one would stand out. And that's sort of what I mean by understanding that you're not just following the brief, but you're also looking to stand out. You know, and that sort of frames how you can approach it. So just be creative and free. Don't think that you're coming at it with any sort of disadvantage, but do something to stand out. And that's why we say, think outside the box. Like, and that can take you far within this or within your career.
Agreed. Rolanda or Jasmine, do you have another question that you think we should pose to the group?
I have a quick one. I'm seeing a lot of questions in the chat just about eligibility. So by October, you have to be by October 2021 now, you have to be a sophomore, junior, or senior. So if you're a current freshman now, you would be a sophomore next year. But if you are like a rising freshman in this call, for instance, you cannot submit if you were a freshman during 2021. So just seeing that a lot, so that would be good to clear it up.
I see a question that I think is perfect for Kenny. So Kenny, there's a question here that says, hi, my name is Kaylin, a sophomore fashion design major at Howard. What are your 3 biggest tips for young people who are trying to start their own clothing line? Kenny, I think you have to give the background about why I'm calling on you for this. I'm picking on you. Really.
Well, as Rolanda stated, I was one of the applicants for the accelerated grant. And for me, you know, I've been talking about starting my own brand, and it's something that I've been wanting to do. So this accelerated grant had maybe been going on for 2 years already, and I had not applied. So Peter was like, Kenny, this is a year to do it. So let's do it. And I really buckled down, especially during lockdown. This happened during lockdown. So it wasn't like I was outside. I wasn't going anywhere. I really had the time to really think things through and come up with my business plan and, you know, just the visual look and what I want people to sort of get from my brand. Like I kind of did that. So I think for you, just strategy, thinking about, you know, fashion is different now. You know, there was a pandemic. We're still in the pandemic. Lockdown is happening. Shopping habits have changed. What is your way of making yourself stand out? How will you reach consumers? Who is your consumer at this point? And how would you target that person? I think those are important. I also think that just being authentic. You know, I think part of what made me sort of stand out when I did my accelerated grant is the fact that it came from a place of my heart. It was personal and authentic to me. And that's what it sort of propelled me into why I wanted to get into fashion and sort of present this idea. And just also not being too caught up in the creative, but also having some business sense. Like you need to know just your strategy as far as like financing. How would you start this brand? Where's your money going to be invested? So those are 3 major things that I can personally say for myself, advice that I would give you as far as starting your own brand. But I'm sure Virgil might have, of course, way more than I know about that. But thanks, Rolanda. I appreciate that.
No,
Yes.
those are super good. We can go to the next.
There's a question here directly for you, Virgil. It says, hi, my name is, so I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. So Fanique, I'm a junior at the Haas School of Business. Question for you, Virgil. How will the Postmodern Scholarship help students trickle into full-time job opportunities?
Yeah, students that are a part of this, like, here's how sort of my short anecdote from my own experience in the industry works. It's like we all start with like an empty Rolodex, and literally the amount of hours you put in keeps equating to new people that you meet and adjacencies that come from it. There isn't this like patented track that everyone in fashion goes to. Anyone that I've ever worked with sort of has had an interview and a person they know and a recommend. It could be someone from high school outside the industry that was a part of their trajectory to be at whatever seemingly dream job they have. And why I think the Fashion Scholarship Fund, the Postmodern, like what's happening is your Rolodex, we're trying to expedite that. You know, and we're talking about these events, not just as like things on the calendar, but if you go to that event, if you participate in the community of other FSF, your Rolodex will naturally get bigger. And that just increases your opportunity for an adjacency that will equate to a job that you might not even know. It can, and that's really why I love this platform, is we're telling you how the industry works. I have this thing on my website called New Nepotism, which is a little bit of it's like, what I found is that everyone has a connection, you know, within the industry. A lot of people have some contact that they can call that says, hey, can I get a job interview? Hey, can I intern? Can I work? And what we were trying to do is expand all those resources so they end up in your lap as well.
So I see a couple of questions about collaborations. Am I able to collaborate with other applicants? Unfortunately, this is an individual process, so we need to see your own creative talent and your own sort of strategy behind what you want to do. So unfortunately, you aren't able to collaborate with other students to submit for the FSF scholarship or the Postmodern scholarship. And another question I see is from a freshman, Maxwell Adams. You're asking if you can apply this year. Unfortunately, freshmen are not able to apply, but you can be a part of the organization if you apply next year. So, you know, whoever is in charge of it at your school, I would talk to them and let them know that you're really interested, and they can sort of start giving you information about it, and you can sort of prepare to apply next year and then get it and be a part of the family. So, yeah.
I see a great question here, also for you, Virgil. I'm curious your thoughts on this. It says, question for Virgil: where do you see fashion going during and after COVID? Do you think we will be moving away from having so many seasons and possibly implement digital content to a greater degree? This is from Adia, who's a fashion design major at Jefferson University.
You know, my general approach to that question is, you know, like, fashion will go to where the people go. And that's sort of like the biggest myth, and something to understand about the fashion industry is that 10 years ago prior, it was an office or boardroom of a select few people deciding what the trendy pair of jeans are, what the color palette, which Nike Air Force Ones are we going to put out, you know, like it was designed top down. And I've been a part of challenging that industry to come from the bottom up, you know, dictating the trend. So I think if you zoom out from now, it starts at the community level. You know, a lot of times when a designer asks me how to start their career, they have a brand, they're looking to gain traction, and they're often maybe not thinking about the step about building community. You know, it'll come from the tides changing. So, you know, building that community is where fashion, the next fashion trend, the next retail model, you know, sustainability, e-commerce, all these buzzwords within the industry, that's the industry trying to adapt to now. But if you ask a 14, 17, 21-year-old, they know how they want to buy clothes. They know where they're finding their muses, their trends. So it's just having acknowledgement about the things that are changing the industry.
I think I'm seeing a lot of people in the chat mention mentorship. So Virgil, here's another question for you from Allegra Abrams. Specifically, she is a fashion and textile major, focusing on sustainability and entrepreneurship at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. She asks, how are you able to build meaningful and long-lasting connections with your mentors, and how have these relationships shaped your current career and perspective of the fashion industry?
Yeah, for me, the important part when you speak about mentorship is connection. You know, literally making a connection that's conversational, that you have a dialogue with the information or the person giving the information. A lot of times you can just look at it as like an opportunity to gain some information, but any opportunity to share, start working, to input ideas, you know, it's always, they always say that like end of a mentorship session when it's like, hey, I just want to introduce myself. Hey, you know, is there anyone in your company that you need any space to fill? Like that's where, you know, like the Rolodex grows. So I think of it on that level, but I also think you need to plan for multiple mentors in your career. It's not just this mentor with a capital M that's this sort of savior that, you know, configures every door that you need open in your career. You know, like my mentors are some people I've never met, you know, from Michael Jordan to Pharrell to I have mentors that are younger than me, you know, photographers. I build my community. So, you know, collectively they make up one person, but it's a number of people that, so I foster that idea of think of your mentors as your community to lift you up. You know, the opportunities will come in different directions, not the one that's like always in the movies or something like that.
There's a question here that I think is probably, I think each of us might have a different answer. This one says, I'm Lisa Gordon, a third-year student at Florida A&M University. What are some ways that you all stay motivated and inspired in the ever-changing fashion culture? Virgil, I'd be really interested to hear what you have to say too.
You guys go first.
I can jump in. I would say, well, one, when I first see this question, actually, I think a lot about how I usually use my like experiences with other people, with traveling, with going to new places as the way that I stay inspired. Obviously with COVID, that has been, you know, almost none. And so I actually find that in the slowing down, I have found a lot of inspiration. So I don't know if it's just me, but I'm sure other people, like, I now notice the leaves changing and my environment changing way more than I ever have. I live in New York City. I notice the buildings and the architecture, same buildings that were here this entire time. I just didn't stop to pay attention to them. I have many of magazines and like print books that I had on my shelf, but like hadn't picked up. And so I've found that I've gone back to things that I was probably moving too fast before to like slow down and notice. And that offline connection really for me has been where I seek inspiration. And I'm even so much, I don't have one right now, but I have like little tab notes, stickies that I like flag pages to come back to if something sparks some inspiration. That's me.
And I think for me, you know, like Rolanda said, I mean, during the pandemic, you can't travel as much anymore. And for me, a lot of my inspiration came from traveling and seeing new things. But I think because time has slowed down a little bit, or at least it feels that way, I do have more time to get into new music genres or new music artists that I haven't checked out. And that sort of inspires me and pushes me into my creative fields. As well as I'm also a big interior person. So I love to look at interior sources and sort of, use that as inspiration. So I think for me, it's having the time to sit down and truly think about what you want to do creatively. And for me, creativity inspires me. That makes me happy, especially when it's something that I feel good about. So I think a lot of that for me has pulled into being able to push through all of this craziness that we've endured this year. So that's it.
I'll hop in. Maybe mine is a little bit less fun. So I'm really interested, I didn't say it earlier, but I'm interested in fashion law. So wanting to work at the intersection between helping designers advocate for more protections in the industry and then helping them protect their brands. So I've been really inspired just by like keeping up with the news and seeing what the recent trends have been in the industry, because I'm technically not in the industry yet, but I get really excited when I'm seeing all of these new innovations and thinking about all of the possibilities that I'll have as a lawyer in the future. So yeah, reading Business of Fashion every day actually like really gets me amped up and reminds me where I'm heading.
Yeah, no, it's all perfect vibes. Like for me, it's like, yeah, I was like a perpetual traveler. You know, I have studios in Paris, studios in Milan, and then studio in London. But, you know, I've largely been in Chicago since March, you know, last Fashion Week. And, you know, it's about switching the mode and not being inspired by these different cities or different sort of just like fashion treadmill, and just looking at, you know, stories to tell. You know, 2020 is a year of humanity, and seeing how many stories haven't been told in the fashion industry, how many stories haven't been told in the film industry, within music. So, you know, I've been a bit inspired by the dissonance and the gap of how much more room like I have to paint a picture of, you know, how much more space as Black creatives there are for us in this industry, and making sure that they're like tactically opened.
Okay, I'll see a few questions for you, Virgil, and it's more guided to how can I work with you personally, and you know, is there opportunities to sort of, I guess, gain mentorship from you in regards to, I guess, being a part of the family of FSF and the Postmodern Scholarship.
Yeah, especially at this moment now, you know, I take that question to heart, because I obviously it's you know, it's in the realm of often asked. And you know, I launched this program called Free Game that's, you know, in the sort of postmodern logic and the digital mentorship. That's what I talk about. It's like, for my book, I know for the larger FSF, of course, it's like we want you to win, but digitally mentoring, sharing stories, doing breakout panels about like small things and the tactics of the industry, you know, literally what it's like to work with me, work for me, is what I'm lending myself and my platform within my website and within the Postmodern Scholarship Fund. You know, like Free Game is that. It's me giving my career breakdown in 10 steps. It's on my website because, you know, I think us as Black leaders within the industry, you know, I formally don't think it's like, it's acceptable to say no, you know, to anyone that wants to work or understand, for me to give the codes to how I've made it in the industry. Like, we're, as a society and as a culture, I'm not at that position. So the answer is yes, but how do you facilitate that, you know, on a number of scales? And so that's providing the information, living on a platform, and fostering that information. So on Free Game, you'll see, you know, week to week, I'll be adding other voices of other Black leaders in their career, breaking down their career in 10 steps that you can follow yourself if you're interested in it. And it's also the network of the FSF, you know, building bridges. And, you know, these are all my colleagues that you see here. The only way for me to, you know, just in a practical sense, like hire the world, is to make a network that services the world.
Thanks for that, Virgil. It's actually a kind of a perfect stopping point. And, you know, I can't underscore more to so many of you who've asked questions and we haven't gotten to the answers that, you know, Virgil, and you've heard from Kenny and Rolanda and Jasmine, but most important, this organization is the platform. We're really here for you. We have a very clear and clean mission that's wholly aligned with Virgil's personal and professional one, which is to see as many of you succeed in the industry as possible. And we want to be there for you all along the way. So please consider us a resource. Please reach out to us. Please contact your educator, who we've now working with quite closely all along the way of this process of applying, of being considered, of availing yourselves of all of the things that we have to offer. it starts with a scholarship, but that's the beginning. And, you know, our commitment is to be there for you. And I know it is a commitment of Rolanda, Jasmine, and Kenny, and equally, if not more important, of Virgil. So thank you all for joining, and thank you guys for sharing. We're really grateful to all of you.
One last thing, Peter already knows my style. It's a little bit unfortunate because I'm not a suit, and you've rarely seen me in a suit. I'm not going to let that talk end in such a suit manner.
I'm not offended.
which basically means we're about to get busy. So, you know, we're not going to end with like leaving so many questions unanswered. So I'm just going to blaze through as many as I can. Yeah, keep them coming. Let's stay on for a little bit, unless anyone's got somewhere to, no one has anywhere to go. It's pandemic. And if, you know, I'm not busy, you're not busy. What, I saw a good one that was, shit, I lost it. We can swear on this thing, right?
Sure.
Okay, here's a question. How do you navigate the fashion industry as a Black man who is ultimately transcending? Where have you struggled? Where have you succeeded? And ultimately, how do you make a strategy to use your ability and resources to ascend regardless of what field you hope to pursue? Yeah, super poignant question. You know, like our industry, you know, a lot of people, we know how obvious it is, how non-diverse it is. So what happens is those that are leaders in that space, you know, amongst the first designers of color, Black designers, trans designers within the Paris fashion industry, we're essentially, you know, in spaces that there's no one else that looks like us. And, you know, another important thing to remember is if you want to develop into like a fashion house in Paris, as an American, it's a whole different culture. You know, Parisian, Italian, you know, Off-White is an Italian company. Obviously Louis Vuitton is a French company. They have their own different understandings of culture than you have if you go to New York or LA. But I think I was given this opportunity to open doors. That's why my job simply isn't just to design clothes. It's to lead by example, to open doors and make sure those doors are open. If I'm gonna be the first, you know, it's the younger generation that's gonna carry the torch. My only real career goal is that, you know, I'm one of like 2 Black fashion designers in Paris. You know, within 2-3 years, I hope that there's, you know, triple that amount. And advocating for young designers, building inroads is what it's about. So to answer your question, of course it's difficult, but, you know, I didn't do this work for a vacation. You know, you don't see me posting pictures on the beach in Bahamas talking about life is stressful. It's like we're here at 6 p.m. on a Tuesday, making sure we're doing the work. And thanks to Peter and team for, you know, I called Peter just the same way I'm talking to you. I was like, we're doing this, you know, like I got a bag full of $1 million and we're going to make sure that it's going to go to younger versions of me. And in whatever, like 4 or 5 months later, we're talking. Another quick one. This is like hey, my name is, yeah, I'm not good with names at all. I'm sophomore in business administration with concentration in marketing. My question is more of a fun closing question. It's directed towards Virgil Abloh. Do you still have the t-shirt design that landed you the job at the print shop with Don C? Yes. And so this is a quick rapid fire on how to get the beginning of your career going, is literally use whatever resources you have. You know, oftentimes it's like money or, you know, like I don't have a factory to make the idea. And I give this advice, like to do it while you're in school. My #1 career advice to get me to where I got is like doing multiple things at one time. Multitasking. It's the same way you're able to like listen to music, text to somebody, be on Instagram, like, and do your homework or whatever all at the same time. I always applied that. And so, you know, I was just making a graphic t-shirt that had my brand name on it and just giving it to friends around the city. And so my fashion career started from one screen printed design that I did with a shop in Chicago called Leaders. I still have it, you know, even though the industry didn't let me believe that I was going to be somebody, I kept it because one day I was like, this is going to be valuable. And fast forward to now, I think it's valuable. I'll do some more. Here, we're going to skip the reading style, and I'm going to go to someone just ask a question. For like 10 more minutes, I can get more done that way.
I have a quick question.
Fire.
So, I am a engineering student I'm an agricultural engineering student, but I've always had a passion for the fashion industry. And you've actually been like a huge inspiration of mine. Like I have a Louis Vuitton design room based off your stuff. But I was just wondering, because I know that you have a background in architecture and like STEM-based things. How did you integrate those things? Like, how did you integrate your STEM background with fashion? I actually was like inspired one time. I basically designed an acrylic Louis Vuitton inspired purse.
Yeah.
Based on like your type of stuff, but just like, how do you integrate those things, if that makes sense?
This is something that I was never taught in school. And it really took me like 10, 15 years after graduating to realize that no professor had really put me on to how the real world works. Like culture is made up by all those disciplines. Like imagine like just riding the bus or train, like culture. There's not one study that makes up culture with a capital C. You know, what affects that? Music, like hip hop or pop culture or, you know, Air Force Ones, Jay-Z, Beyonce, you know, like, and those are the things that dictate fashion, right? So that pop culture changes trends. You saw this week, Supreme sold for $2 billion. That's what that business is evaluated. It's based off culture. We know where that culture comes from, but it's on skateboarding. That's worth $2 billion. Imagine Jay-Z, Dame Dash with Rockefeller, Puff with Sean John. So all of that has articulated into a new ecosystem. So, you know, I love when everyone's talking about they have different degrees than what they practice now. No professor ever told me that what I was doing off of my school hours was basically just listening to rap music, graffiti, hanging with friends, that's actually the valuable part to launch your fashion perspective based on the small conversations that you have with your friends in your community. You know, those become the next big trends that no big brand, you know, that's where influencers came from. You know, brands needed people on the ground to be like, hey, will you co-sign this bag? So then people think it's popping. And I think when you think about the future of the fashion industry, if you guys start harnessing how to translate culture to something that you own and something that you can sort of stamp as like, oh, this is what my brand is about, you'll start seeing traction because it's relevant on the ground level. And so you can be in whatever discipline and get it popping. Next.
Greetings, Virgil.
Jarrett, what up?
More.
Hey, how are you doing? I had a question, well, somewhat of a question. First question, being that I have more of an information technology background, what advice would you give people that don't come from the traditional background of fashion? And what avenues would you have paid more attention to looking back in your history coming from an architecture background? First question.
Yeah, I'll do it fast so we can get as many. 100%, you being from tech, that's like the open highway within fashion, because fashion brands still haven't figured out a way to appear online and convert sales like the retail experience, you know. And also data is the most important. It's like you realize why Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, like those are just blank canvases that we as human beings pour all of our data into, like our whatever we like, whatever music we play. If you can start developing your plan, or imagine when you apply to the FSF, the case study, but you take your knowledge about tech and you apply it into a way of thinking, you can develop an idea about how we sell fashion online, or how you can get higher engagement within a brand. So tech is important. It's not of the, my logic is if it's not of the traditional way of fashion, it's going to be an express lane to sort of crush it into the future. So yeah, hats off to you for picking a career, but also being interested in fashion.
That was my question. I actually had a second part.
We got to get to someone else to like, so we can share as well. A space for females for a question.
I have a question. My name is Ariel Bishop. I go to Clark Atlanta University, and I did a project, and I read that you said in an interview that streetwear will eventually die. What did you mean by that? And would you say that new designers that want to pursue a clothing line, should they steer away from streetwear?
Super good question. And basically, now that you've met me for a second, you could see how that comment just came off as a freestyle.
Yeah,
they took the quote and they were like, oh, let's run it, acting like borderline. I didn't even say that for fact, but
that's what I thought.
I was talking about like if you're knowledgeable about streetwear, like you know that it's died and come back 3 times before now. But you know, like when I'm talking about Puff, imagine when Jay-Z and Puff went to Nordstrom and they were like, oh, we're gonna put you in the urban section. You know, and imagine like how come those brands aren't around now? FUBU, you know, that was would they say that moment died?
Right.
It did. But you know, it's just about knowledge. So I think what's important is you have to understand the history of now. And if you look at the model of, say, Off-White, Kith, Supreme, I would challenge you to think of what's the future of that. Just don't make a version of what exists now. So I said that streetwear is dead just to spur, just to let it be known. I'm not one just to like look like I'm enjoying myself. Like I'm a thought leader. Like us as Black creatives, we're not just here to perform. It's not just to sort of to do the next fly stuff. It's like we're thinkers, we're critical thinkers. Like let's be known for the ideas as well as the execution. So I'm proud of what I said, and I wouldn't change it because it was like I'm out here thinking about what is going to happen, and I know that the kids that are going to take my job, they also don't like streetwear. They got the next idea, which is I'm sure you guys all do. There's probably something about Off-White LV that you guys might not like. And what I'm here to say is that's the mentality that you should have.
Okay.
Like the world is yours. You'll be the next Off-White. You'll be the next new sneaker brand after Nike, Adidas, Salomon, New Balance. And what I'm interested in is that like fostering it so the Black culture is at the creative heads, at the board level, at the head designer level of these brands that we talk about every so often. Next.
Greetings, Mr.
I have a question.
Being
that you're the new menswear director for Louis Vuitton.
My name is Maya Wright,
2008.
and I attend Florida A&M University.
I'll do Maya and Jeff because you guys both had the longest intro. But you both
first though, Maya. You could go.
Okay.
Jeff, we got you next. Maya?
All right. My name is Maya Wright, and I attend Florida A&M University. I'm a second-year business administration transfer student. I work close with Maestro at Cox Media Group, and I've been trying to push my fashion, my clothing line for the longest, and it only took a moment of your time. I wanted to know if I could showcase my work really quickly.
Yeah, fast.
Okay. This is a hoodie that I designed.
Fire. Is it knitwear? Is it printed? Is it like?
I get all my clothes printed like through warehouses in China. My goal is to revolutionize streetwear. So this is to represent Chicago. So for
Fire. Where are you from?
I'm from Miami, Florida, and Chicago, Illinois.
No, reporting live from Chicago.
Yeah. All right, this is the last one, so I don't hold up, Jeff. This one specifically for FAMU. It says royalty in Arabic, and it has
Fire. Oh, okay. Yeah, you're already on track with one of the like, round of applause to you because it's fire. You know, the silhouette, but also the color, and it's just like you're doing something that's authentic. You know, that's, you already heard earlier in the talk. But if you, this kind of goes back to like knowledge of streetwear, knowledge of trends, knowledge of where the styles came from. It's like in the 90s within R&B and hip hop, like, you know, like a Howard sweatshirt was just as fashionable as Gucci. You know, Jordan, Black colleges is it's like a cornerstone of Black fashion. Like 110%. If I was any of you guys in college right now, I would be having like, I would bring that energy back. Historical Black colleges and university as like a fashion brand can be streetwear coming out of 2020 needs to be, you know, like that's what ASAP Rocky needs to be wearing, is like that FAMU, like that sweater that I saw there just gave a feeling of like one of those corners within street fashion, hood fashion, that was ours. And it's like a blank slate. And we know in fashion, things go in cycles. You know, like man loves to think that they can invent something, but everything, a lot of things have been done in the past. So you're on to something with that, and just keep going with it. Jeff?
Thank you.
100%.
Thank you, Mr. Abloh. I'm Jeff McKay. It's a 4th year in the 5-year MBA program from Harlem, New York, at Hampton University. And my question was, being that you are the first Black menswear director for Louis Vuitton since March of 2018, what's like the most important thing you have gained from your experience thus far?
Man, that's a good ass question. But like, I'm an optimist. That's why my energy is like tuned to be able to deal with the energy that it takes to do this. You know, as you can tell, I don't do anything but work and this because I enjoy it. I would say I had always grown up with this ambition that fashion wasn't for me. You know, I had that like chip on my shoulder that they like, even though I was going to try to work and get to like the top, that I had this own feeling that like, oh, they're not going to hire me. Even me, you know, like they don't want someone that looks like me at the front, at the head, you know, and I had to check myself. And this is kind of the message I'm delivering to you guys. It's like, don't think the negative about the potential of the world that you want to occupy. Obviously, know where you're going to go and know that be confident in the own work. And what that did is like, I had to be confident in my voice, confident, you know, they used to not call me a designer, which is the ironic part about that statement. You know, designers like of this summer, I'll show a collection and they'll be like, he's not a designer. Those ideas aren't his, they came from me, you know? And like, I tapped into that mentality and realized that these spaces are for us. You know, these next collections, the next styles, like we're designers. I'm really close friends with an artist named Arthur Jaffa. And he said something to me last week that sort of set my brain like recalibrated. He was like, us as Black people, we're born conceptual artists. And it was like, that's a deep, heavy, heavy, heavy quote. You know, like diamonds are made by pressure. You know, we're born with the world tilted a little bit different for reasons that we don't have to go into. But our ability to exist, think, be creative, be conceptual, be practical is made by our circumstances. Like I'm from Chicago, you go to the hood, you see how people have adapted. You know, you see Michael Jordan with a basketball. You see how he's adapted. You see how art and all these things exist. You see, and so when I think about the future, it's about becoming confident and feeling like these spaces are ours. These opportunities are ours. And hopefully the world will change and meet us halfway. And that's with us getting together like this. So to answer your question in short, it's like not thinking the negative, knowing that the positive is possible.
Hello, Mr. My name is Zachariah Smith. I'm a sophomore business administration major at Morehouse College. My question is for you today, with current trajectory of the market moving from in-store to online sales, what would be your advice for individuals who are looking to penetrate the industry with a third-party application, sales platform, et cetera, despite the rapid growth of innovative platforms like Amazon, Instagram, StockX, and et cetera?
The one thing, my advice on that is that the one thing that the internet shopping misses is soul, right? Like I'm working on a new Off-White website and I've been for like 6 months. It'll take like a year to build. And we already did an analysis. Every website is the same. You know, it's all about like one click and trying to like navigation and search engine. If I were to come at tech, I would be like, how can I get the feeling of what it's like to walk into a bodega or what it's like to go to Colette or Louis, but have that feeling on a phone, you know? And you have to think outside the box. That doesn't mean you take like a website and you just make a different logo and skin and font. It's like an all different experience. So I think it's like social media is the best example. Twitter, Instagram, we all use one thing. And then Twitter's like, okay, here's image and a short caption. Then everyone moves to that. Always look to the past with technological, like especially social media, and try to apply that to like your own practice.
Mr. Abloh, I'm currently in Chicago, Illinois. I was wondering if there was any programming or anything, any way that we could potentially meet, as this has been an idea that I've been working on for quite a time.
Ask Peter, he'll make sure you get my info
Well,
of some sort. I'll take a couple more.
Hold up, Bert, I got one question. It's a basic question.
I know that as a designer.
We'll do Josiah and Demetria.
All right, my question is kind
of. And Cole too.
All right,
so
my question.
Can you add me to that list?
Yeah, and then Brandon at the end.
Me as well. Can I have a question? I have one
question as well.
You see how I'm trying to do it? I'm gonna try to like keep. I just did it to myself.
Brandon, I'm going after you.
But okay, Josiah, go.
And could I go?
May I go next?
I'll go last.
He's so reckless. But let's do it. Josiah, go.
All right. So basically, I just want to ask kind of a simple question. How did you come up with the name Off-White?
Yeah, the original name for my brand was Pyrex Vision. It was like a Pusha T line from the Clips that I was like super inspired, that was what I was on. But then I needed to come up with a name that I could trademark. This is the super important thing that I didn't learn in school either, is that when I tried to start the line as Pyrex Vision, I got a cease and desist letter from Owens Corning because they owned it. So I had to come up with a name that I owned around the globe. And that's the important thing for you guys, is like owning 100% your IP. Like,
right.
That's how the world works. Like if I didn't own my name, someone else bought it, then all this work would have gone to someone else. And that's just literally paperwork, and so I came up with the name Off-White because I needed something that didn't have a definition. And I figured by the time I put in my work, like if you heard the name Off-White, you would be like, oh, that's the brand, and it's about like, the gray area between black and white, but it's not gray. I wanted it to be my own thumbprint. So, another reference to those.
Also, real quick, I just wanted to say, like, everybody's showing out their work. I just want to show I make graphic tees, streetwear. I'm a graphic designer, and I make graphic tees. Just want to show that off real quick.
Drop your Instagram in the chat box, bro.
It's hard, man.
Fire. Congrats. Demetria.
Okay, hi. First off, hi. Okay, so I'm currently working on building my own brand, but a lot of people have been telling me, hey, don't do that. Why don't you just buy clothes and sell it instead of designing my own clothes? So how did you gain the confidence to keep going?
Yeah, well, like for one, I know it's hard, but don't listen. Like that's the number one like thing to sort of like tune out is anyone that tells you not to. Like, because they're basically just part-time giving like advice that you're not asking for really. And the things that you don't see when you're developing that is what your next big idea is going to be. It's more helpful advice to not hold on to an idea for forever, thinking that your first idea has to be your last idea. That's the more critical advice. Like learn from it and keep developing. Yeah, and it's just like check your friends that you keep around you. That's my best piece of advice. Like anyone that's not encouraging, it's like it's all right, but also like, you know, they're trying to help, they're trying to give their advice. It's cool, just know that it shouldn't stop you.
I also have another question. Is there any way that we can reach out to you as well? I have
Like we're making that platform. Obviously, like you see how I roll. I try to answer everything, but I think there's definitely a way. Peter, put that on the list of like, you know, I'm down to do, my idea was to do these sessions more often so that it could be like not such a rush at, you know, 7:30 Eastern time. But, you know, the idea is that there's a platform for us to build or exchange or submit things that I can get to in a reasonable amount of time. Cole and then Brandon.
Okay, hello. My name is Cole. I'm from Orlando, Florida, a junior fashion design major at Howard. And I know like as a fashion designer, and I also produce music as well. I know music, they tie into each other. So I just want to know like what artists are you listening to lately? Because I know you DJ as well. So I just want to know what you did.
No, I was just listening to that new Pluto, you know.
Yeah.
Future.
Yeah.
But then I went back to Dirty Sprite too, because it was like classic Future. I don't know, you know, I listened to like literally, I was waiting for Playboi Carti's album, but you know, I was like getting to, like time was just floating by.
Okay.
Like, let me check. Let's go to the iPhone.
Yeah.
I'll be factual with it.
Do you listen to Dean Blunt at all?
What's that?
Do you listen to Dean Blunt at all, or like Ariel Pink?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Like all the alternative. Dean Blunt's a friend of mine from London.
Oh,
but this is the latest.
Gucci Mane.
Gucci, Burprint, Outkast, AT Aliens.
That's good.
That's my favorite album.
Cole, you would be into, if you were into Dean Blunt, there's this black artist out of London called Actress.
Okay.
Where's the NBA YoungBoy at?
Yeah. Man, yo. And okay, like no
Young boy.
Whatever, I'm from Chicago, and we just lost King Von. So
yeah, all right.
Fine, bro.
So like
Don't make me cry.
please bear with me on
Don't do it.
you know, like man, it's really, but yeah, rest in peace, King Von. So my rap alliances are a little bit shook. Brandon.
Actually, and Cole, I want to say that too, because I'm opposite of you. I was born at Howard University Hospital, and I just moved up to Delaware from Orlando.
Oh, crazy.
Funny. But so basically, I'm at Delaware State University right now, just a studio arts major. And basically, I'm like a self-taught jeweler. I taught myself how to work, cut down stones, work with different metals and things of that nature. Eventually, after my second year here, I'm going to be transferring to Academy of Art University to get my bachelor's degree in jewelry design.
Fire.
My business is called Optifine Jewels.
Gotcha.
But basically, my question was just a personal question, and I think it might help everybody since they're a creative here. How do you find like a healthy balance from just starting out with this being something that you love and something that you kind of do for fun to growing it into an actual business and an actual like established company without losing the drive and the love and the passion for it? Because I've had moments where I felt burnt out and I was like, I don't even want to touch a piece of jewelry. I don't want to see no stones. And then, you know, it comes back, and because I really want this to be something that gets established, but I also don't want to lose that creative spark and that love for it in the process.
Yeah, you know, like, oh, that's a good segue into like, obviously I started off white and I knew this was going to be like a long journey, but I really developed that idea of collaboration. Like I could do a whole 3 hours on collaboration as it is. Like coming up, there was no way for me, like a young Black designer, like, you know, like Vogue wasn't trying to put my t-shirt in the magazine. I couldn't get any magazine. I couldn't get any, you know, like no, like it was hard to get the word out. So what I did is I started collaborating, and not just collaborating with brands, but collaborating with artists. So when you feel like you're getting burnt out by like almost having a dialogue with yourself, look at people to have a dialogue with. Like, you know, I could tell by your jewelry, like if you met Lil Uzi, his chain would look different afterwards.
Yeah.
You know, like, and so it's like finding a local artist, being like, yo, let me do the jewelry for your music video. Or finding a local flower shop and being like, hey, like I got a vision, like, can I sell my pieces here instead of like the fashion store up the block? And then all of a sudden you're Instagramming like, you know, different, you're just coming different at it. And I have a firm belief no one will be like really burnt out if it's your passion, you know? So it's just about
no matter what, it's always there, and I always want to keep it going. You know, it's never like I want to stop, you know? But I really appreciate that, because I think it just goes back to thinking outside the box and getting out of my head, because sometimes I'm like a mad scientist. I get stuck in here.
Yeah, just again, it's like, I'll say it again, community, keep the friends around you will foster new vibes. So
May I please wrap this up?
Okay, yeah. Can I go after her?
Yeah, one more.
I had one question.
May I
please
have
wrap
a question
this
as
up?
well? I want to ask a question as well.
Let's go to Madaya.
And Darian.
Darian, and then we're out.
AD.
Dorian. Could I go as well?
Caitlin.
So is it my turn?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Hi, I'm a fashion designer from Jefferson University. I'm a junior. I actually applied for the FSF scholarship this year. And I was wondering, does this postmodern scholarship apply for applicants of this year?
Rolanda and Kenny, you guys are up.
I'll jump in with that. Yes, it does. So this is the first year where Virgil's Fund is meant to support Black applicants. So you would be qualified this year if you are a rising junior.
Great, thank you. And I had one question for Virgil, just really quickly, sorry. As a Black person in the fashion industry who has not only been in the American fashion industry, but also the global fashion industry, what do you think that the American fashion industry can do to improve? Personally, as a fashion designer, I've seen a lot of critiques from global fashion designers, specifically of American fashion design, and how it's kind of late to the game in every way. How do you think that we can kind of like jumpstart American fashion and kind of get back to kind of like the days of, I'd say like 60s and 70s and even like 80s and 90s, Black fashion designers in America?
Yeah, I think it's about us as the American like industry making new rules. You know, like that's how trends work. Like we speak a different language. Like if you go to cities in America and see how Black fashion appears and Black culture, what we need at the top level, and these are some of the ideas that we're working on with other teams of mine, is like we need like a revised fashion week that celebrates us. There was a thing in New York called Made Fashion Week, which I'm not sure if many know, but like that's where Hood by Air was showing, that's where Pierre Moss was showing, that's where Public School was showing. You know, I was there with Ye. You know, that was our epicenter, and it wasn't Paris Fashion Week. That was just in New York at a photo studio. And I think that, like, again, it's until we come together, will we make our own new rules? Like, it's a big question you just asked. And I think, you know, as American industry, once we rally around each other, we'll see the fashion industry change. And that's, you know, the upside of streetwear. Again, Supreme sold for $2 billion. You know, it has like 6 stores in the world. I think that shows what potential you guys all have if you have a streetwear brand, at what that equity can equate to. And you know, they don't call Supreme a fashion brand. Yeah, so I think we'll let that be the last question, just because it was such a good one.
Oh,
I see Peter
what?
sweat.
Thank you.
But nah, Darian had one quick. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
play you like that.
Okay, thank you. So I'm a young designer from Louisville, Kentucky, but I'm a junior at Howard University. And my question for you is, as a couture designer and like wanting to be in a couture, what is the best route to go to just when it comes to promoting my work and showing the art that I'm putting out outside of social media?
Man, man, that's so dope that you're starting in couture, because like that's a genre in fashion that needs to see Black design.
Yeah.
What I would say is, I think about how print is more important now than digital.
Yeah.
Here, let me show you what I got.
Okay.
That's perfect. So, like my last fashion collection for Louis Vuitton in when was it, like August or whatever? I printed the whole lookbook, and I haven't posted any of these images on social media. So what that means is like, oh, this is not easily digestible. Like the work that it took me to make all this fashion, I don't want to just put it out like all these extra images that we're seeing every day. And I don't know, I might sell these, I might give them away, but I think you should do that for your couture collection and be like, hey, you know, this is the collection, it's not on Vogue Runway. And then all of a sudden you start building this like allure around you that's like, oh, there's this amazing American designer doing couture. You have to get one of his books to see the collection. So just making your narrative about the story and then marketing yourself about the story, you'll make a new game for yourself. All right, mad love. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for Peter, Kenny, Rolanda, everyone from SFS, Alyssa. Like I said, I'm down to do this again, because I like anyone that has more questions is like, I got nothing but time, just not now. I feel everyone's getting fatigued.
Please, we got questions.
Thank you, Virgil. And we will do this again soon. And guys, we did put in the chat, if you want to reach out to us, please, info@fashionscholarshipfund.org. And, you know, we'll do as much as we can for you, Demetria, and anybody else who wants to continue the conversation with Virgil. We're standing by. So
let's use my email. Like anyone else who has a question that we didn't get to, especially this group for one, like send it through whatever email we have on file, and I'll get back to everyone. That's my promise to the group.
Thank you guys for doing this.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you,
This is
Virgil.
so awesome.
Thank you guys so much.
Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Love.
You got the youth in here too.
So much, each and every one of you.